Hi, I'm Bob Butler from KCBS Radio. Welcome to a forum of the 4 candidates running for 2 seats on the Walnut Creek City Council. Today's forum is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Elections Division, Contra Costa Television, and the West County and Diablo Valley League of Women Voters. We're recording these roundtables here in the studios of Contra Costa Television with help from the cities of Concord, Richmond, and Walnut Creek. The 4 candidates are Matt Francois, Laura Patch, Cindy Isley Silva, and Brian O'Toole. We drew lots before the show to determine the speaking order, so we'll begin with Matt.
Well, good afternoon, Bob. Thank you to you and to the League of Women Voters, CCTV, and the Elections Division for hosting this forum. My name is Matt Francois. I'm a 22-year resident of Walnut Creek, a long-standing community volunteer and land use attorney. I'm pleased to have served a first term on the Walnut Creek City Council. I'm running for re-election to reactivate our area for job creation, to improve on our high quality of life, and to make sure that Walnut Creek remains a safe, friendly place to live, work, and visit.
And let me see, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Patch. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm going to do a quick accessibility introduction and describe myself as a white woman with brown chin-length hair. Today I'm wearing a white shirt and a green jacket. I am running for Walnut Creek City Council because I believe in our city's future, and I want to be part of ensuring that our community addresses issues like the climate crisis, housing concerns, and the needs of the disabled community. Thank you.
Cindy Silva.
Thank you very much, Bob. And thank you to the League of Women Voters, CCTV, and the county for being able to sponsor this forum. We are here today to be able to talk about why we're running for City Council. My name is Cindy Silva. I have been on the City Council for 16 years, and I've had the honor of serving as mayor 3 times. And professionally, I am a business writer and marketing communications professional, and I've enjoyed a career both internationally, nationally, and locally. I am a longtime community volunteer and have given back to the community through our schools, our youth soccer and swim, through the Hospice of the East Bay, through the Walnut Creek Civic Pride Foundation, the Walnut Creek Library Foundation, and the Walnut Creek Sister Cities International. I am working at the regional and state level on many policy issues as well. I'm running again because there's work still to be done. We have a fabulous community and an exceptional quality of life, and I'm committed long-term to ensuring that we are continuing to be an exceptional community. Thank you very much.
Brian O'Toole, why are you running?
Thank you, everyone, for hosting us here today. My name is Brian O'Toole. My Walnut Creek story began in 1978, which I think makes me the most experienced Walnut Creek citizen on the panel today, for whatever that's worth. I was 2. But I'm running because on three issues. One, land use. You may have noticed that we are building a lot of apartment buildings. We pretty much tapped out the downtown. So now the new idea is to start expanding the sphere for where we're going to build those apartment buildings into our neighborhoods and communities that may not be accustomed to high-density housing. I, for one, I live on the edge of Ignacio and Oak Grove. Ignacio Valley is already a nightmare to get through. Same for Treat Boulevard. So I think there is a way to grow the city. I don't think putting 400 or 500 residences next to Heather Farms Park is necessarily a great idea. Bottom line, I think we need to be a little more methodical, a little more judicious in how we approach high-density housing in the city. Number 2, land use is important. 2, I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer. I try to keep an eye on the international stuff. I think we'd be great if we had a sister city relationship with the city in Ukraine. I can't speak for everyone here, but I think my kids, my family could learn a lot from what's going on over there and helping the Ukrainians rebuild in every little way that we can. Then number 3, I'm the father of 3 young girls. I got a 1 Foothiller and 2 Walnut Acres kids. The thing in Uvalde, Texas, it scared the you-know-what out of me. Bottom line, we had a lot of heavily armed officers standing around for an hour because there was no plan. We need to have specific and customized plans in case something does go down like that at our schools, so we don't have to wait for the 36th officer to show up before we go in and figure out what to do. Otherwise, pretty affable guy, estate planning and elder law attorney. I handle the what if I die questions and also the what if I live questions. Make sure you got the right legal toolkit. My office is right downtown, or right in by Pleasant Hill BART. So I literally live, work, play, parent, work, all in Walnut Creek. Thank you very much.
You talked about three things that you want to do. Let's talk about the land use. You're
Right.
talking about apartment buildings being built that may not be good. Now, housing, affordable housing is a big deal everywhere.
Right.
What is your solution to affordable housing in Walnut Creek?
Affordable housing, I take a walk around my office from time to time. We're already building affordable housing. Walnut Creek definitely has its part to play, but we are not the only community that needs to shoulder the burden. We need to make sure that other communities are taking part in this. If you drive up 24, I don't see a lot of affordable housing going up in some of the other communities. I'm the Peace Corps volunteer. I definitely agree that we need to make sure that people who work in Walnut Creek can live in Walnut Creek. That's integral for a host of different reasons. From environmental, you don't have to get on BART, you don't even have to drive on the freeway. But bottom line, if we build haphazardly, just like a vein when you have a heart disease, if we choke off the arteries, Ignacio and Treat Boulevard, that's going to affect the entire community. It's already pretty bad. I hesitate to dump a lot more housing right on that spot. There's ways to do it. The Via Monte building in the Shadelands, that's a great example. That's an assisted living community, probably not too heavy on the cars. I do hesitate to start breaking down and destroying any commercial and retail properties in order to just keep building. We need to have a plan, not just to build housing, but the entire support structure that goes along with maintaining that high quality of life in our peripheral neighborhoods.
Cindy, I'm assuming that this plan would have had to have been approved by the council. You've been there for 16 years. Do you remember when you approved this and why you approved it?
So we have numerous plans that we are executing currently. We have our General Plan 2025, which was adopted in 2006, which really outlines where we will put housing as well as all of the other issues related to transportation, circulation, safety, as well as the natural environment. So the general plan basically envisioned that housing, including affordable housing, would primarily be vertical, not horizontal, in order to protect our open spaces and our single-family neighborhoods. And it would be located downtown specifically and strategically because people who live downtown are closer to transit, to BART, to transportation sectors, to trails, to services, so they actually need to use their cars much less than those who live in a single-family neighborhood many miles from being able to shop or get to work. So we are executing on that plan. Then in the last 5 years, we've adopted two specific plans, the West Downtown Specific Plan and the North Downtown Specific Plan, which really focus in on more specifics on how we would grow over the next 20 to 30 years, both accommodating office, automotive, retail, and commercial, as well as the additional housing that all of the communities in the state of California are being required to plan for. And so those plans have all been adopted, and we are now executing on them. What happens with development is that developers come, they look at the plan, and they may seek modifications in order to accommodate the specific time in the marketplace, availability of financing, et cetera. But I could talk for hours about how
We don't
want to do that. I would bore people to death.
Matt, Brian mentioned that they're building at Heather Farms. That's not downtown.
No, I believe he's referring to a project that's actually in the county, and that's a senior living project that would be governed by the county's land use planning process. So it's adjacent to the city, and the city sent a comment letter to the county outlining some very critical issues and impacts that they wanted to see, we, the city, wanted to see addressed as part of that project. And as Cindy mentioned, the plans that we have adopted over the years, including the general plan And the two specific plans, the North Downtown Plan and the West Downtown Plan, focus any future growth near the BART station, in and around transit and downtown. And I'm very proud to say that I've supported hundreds of affordable housing projects over my time, my 2 terms on the Planning Commission, and now my first term on the council, including a project I'm very excited about, which is a 100% affordable 97-unit project at Civic and Ignacio Valley Road.
So Laura, you're at the Sierra Club, I understand, and you probably have some really strong opinions about housing.
I do have very strong opinions about housing. I believe that urban sprawl contributes to climate change, and therefore we need to limit urban sprawl. That does mean that we need additional housing near these public transit hubs that Cindy and Matt have mentioned. I would say that it doesn't need to just be at BART, though. We need to have better bus systems and other transit options that don't rely on individual vehicles throughout the city, so that Shadelands can be another hub of high-density housing without contributing to urban sprawl, but people don't need to have additional traffic on Ignacio Valley Road.
What do you think are the biggest challenges facing Walnut Creek?
I think that we need to address climate change at a local level. People of my generation and younger are actually very concerned that we're not going to make it to retirement age. It saddens me that the current city council won't acknowledge that there's a climate crisis. I think that that's a great first step. The sustainability action plan that the council is looking at does have some good recommendations, but it doesn't go far enough, fast enough. We need to address individual vehicles. We need to make Walnut Creek a walkable city, not just a walkable downtown.
Brian, do you think that the council is doing all it can to address climate change?
Oh, I think the cards we have to play at the city council level are fairly limited. You know, I read San Francisco's installing $20,000 garbage cans, which have been destroyed as sport. You know, I think the bottom line is that we need to make this city a livable city. And if we eliminate the need to get on 680 and 24 to go shopping or to go out to dinner, I think that's a major step. If we maintain our office space, you know, right now, it's not a great time to be a landlord in Walnut Creek. There's a lot of empty office space. But if we destroy it all, that's going to force people who aren't able to work from home to get back on the freeway. I think we can identify a lot of transportation ills, and we can resolve those if we provide a bubble in Walnut Creek where you can live, work, and play, and you don't have to get on the freeway. I think that's a major issue. I've got solar panels and I work right in town. So I'm trying to do my part to reduce my carbon footprint. And I would challenge everyone here, get those solar panels out if you are able. I know interest rates are going up. But bottom line, do those things on a personal level. And the city can provide either credits or we can try to support those steps. And, you know, creating bikeable communities, creating walkable communities. That keeps people out of the cars, keeps the traffic down, and I think those are achievable goals. And I think it's something that, you know, given the limited amount of resources that the city has to dedicate to those sorts of things, I don't think it's been a terrible job, but as always, I think we could do more.
Cindy, how do you respond to the allegation that the council is not acknowledging climate change?
I disagree completely. For a city of our size, we are considered a leader in this state. But I will also say that climate change is a serious, serious challenge, and it's a serious problem. But it is not just a local problem. It has to be addressed at the regional, at the state, the national, and the international level. And that's what the California Public Policy Institute spoke to last week at an annual conference of the League of California Cities. She was really trying to encourage us to adopt best practices across regional areas so that we were working together on climate. We adopted our first climate action plan in 2012, and we set a goal to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 2020 by 15%, and we met and exceeded that goal at 25% by 2017. We are currently working on an update to our climate action plan, but we're calling it a sustainability action plan because we know we can do more and we will need to do more. The things that we have done that have helped us achieve the goal, we joined MCE and 88% of the community joined with us, and it's helped us.
MCE?
Marine Clean Energy, but it's now called MCE. So it's an electrical clean energy purchasing, procurement, and distribution system. We have installed 2 solar installations in our parks, and it effectively has taken 150 cars off the road, the greenhouse gas emissions. But we also recognize that 60% of our greenhouse gas emissions are in our vehicles. And so we are working on electric vehicle infrastructure across the city, both in the cities and in new development. We are transferring and transitioning our entire fleet to electric vehicles, but we cannot do it in one fell swoop because it would be millions and millions and millions of dollars that we don't have. We need to do it as we are retiring vehicles and bringing new vehicles in. We actually use city money to fund 2 free buses that work in downtown, the free downtown trolley and also the number 5. And the investment in that and of the taxpayer dollars allows us to get people out of their vehicles and not relying entirely on their vehicles to go to the grocery store or to transfer from BART to the Broadway Plaza. We are building better biking and walking facilities, and they are in our plans. Federal funds and state grant funds are a necessity in order to be able to do those transportation improvements. And we are focused, I think 2 of the things that are very important that we're doing is we're focused on housing downtown where people can drive less to get to where they need, as well as focusing on job creation locally, because if people can live and work at least reasonably in central Contra Costa and don't have to travel as far, then your greenhouse gas emissions will be reduced. If we are forced to drive to the South Bay and to have jobs in the South Bay, those greenhouse gas emissions will be more and more difficult to tackle.
Yeah. Matt, the governor wants us to not sell, I'm assuming he means just gas vehicles by 2035 in California. I'm not sure he means hybrid vehicles. I hope he doesn't, because that's what I drive. But do you think that's doable?
I do. I think it requires bold leadership. I think the governor has led in that regard, as our prior governors have, Schwarzenegger and Brown. And the city of Walnut Creek stands ready, willing, and able to be a partner with the state. I'm proud to live in California. I'm proud of the leadership my state has shown on climate change. We, on the city council level, have prioritized climate change and sustainability twice now, and we've allocated nearly $500,000 in funds towards sustainability initiatives even before adopting the new sustainability plan. Cindy mentioned that we exceeded our 2020 targets. I'm proud of that. We didn't get a lot of time to celebrate it because we were in the middle of a pandemic, but that's what we do. We roll up our sleeves and we get to work, and we've been working on the sustainability plan now for the last 2 to 3 years. All the stakeholder groups are involved, or it's gone through our city commissions multiple times. The council has given good feedback, and we know the way that we need to get there to achieve ultimately net carbon neutrality is to electrify our vehicles and our cars. We will unfortunately all need to get out of the hybrid. I drive a hybrid as well, and be all electric in our driving. We need to reduce vehicle miles traveled to the extent we're in a hybrid or a gas-powered vehicle. And then we need to electrify our buildings and rely less on natural gas.
Laura, do you think the governor's plan is doable, or do you support that?
I think it is doable, and I do support it. One of my major concerns is that while EVs address the greenhouse emission, they are still not the solution, because we still have to mine for the lithium required for the batteries and then dispose of those batteries, which is why I talk a lot about making Walnut Creek a walkable and bikeable city. We need transit options that address the last mile, first mile in Walnut Creek, which really in Walnut Creek is like the last 6 miles because of the way the city is designed. So while I love the free shuttles that are in downtown, it's really difficult to get from Shadelands to downtown or vice versa. And we need to expand on those options, make it more safe for people like me that use a tiny electric scooter to get around town, or for children to take their bikes to school instead of having to have every parent drop their child off in their own vehicle.
So what's the solution if I'm in downtown, I'm say at Broadway Plaza, and I buy a big television? How do I get that television from Broadway Plaza up to Clayton Valley Road?
Yes, I mean, we're never going to be in a society where we don't have personal vehicles. I'm not suggesting we do that. What I am suggesting is that instead of having to use your car for a grocery run once a week, you go every day and you don't take a vehicle. You take a bus or a bike with a basket on it. There are lots of cities in Europe that are based on this model, and they do very well. And I believe that Walnut Creek can be innovative in this aspect.
But how do you do that if you're working, say, in San Francisco, Monday through Friday? You can't go shopping every day.
That's why public transit needs to be where there are hubs of stores and commercial, such as the Safeway that's on Bancroft, near Bancroft Gardens. I was without a vehicle for over a month in Walnut Creek, and I couldn't even make it to my gym, which was a little over 2 miles away, because the buses would take longer than it was for me to walk that far. We just need to be able to have buses run more frequently, and in some cities that has resulted in smaller buses, so vans that run every 10 minutes instead of large buses that run every 45 minutes. People won't use a system if they think it's ugly and doesn't run on time.
You know, we talk about climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, cars. One of the biggest problems, I think, when it comes to vehicle emissions is that 680-24 interchange, especially in the morning and the afternoon. What do we do about that? I know that's not a city solution. It's a state highways, but what can be done about that?
Is this for me?
Yeah.
I'd say, you know, the bottom line is if Walnut Creek citizens can work and live and enjoy the city, we don't have to get on the freeways. And that's going to be, you know, it's going to be like rain putting out a forest fire. It's not going to be one fell swoop where we solve all these problems. It's going to be individual decisions and individual families making decisions to one drip at a time to put this global, you know, let's not call it climate change, it's global warming. It was 116 in Walnut Creek the other day. It never has got up to that level as long as I've lived here. It's unbelievably obvious that global warming is going on. But we need to address this at the city level. It means having livable communities. And that means a nice balance between your commercial space, you know, we're talking about walking to the store, we're talking about getting to work quickly. It's also about open space. You know, if we can recreate right here in the city, it doesn't mean we have to drive up to Tahoe every weekend. And that's part of the issue too, is if we can enjoy our time in city, that's going to help one drip at a time put out this issue. Straight shot, the 680-24 interchange, I don't think Walnut Creek alone can solve that. Yeah. But I think if individuals start saying, hey, I don't need to go to the city, I don't need to go to Moraga, I don't need to get on the interchange there, and you know, I think that's the start of the solution.
Yeah, but most people that are on that aren't from Walnut Creek. They're going to Livermore or Benicia or Pittsburgh or Concord. I'm not sure what the solution is. I just wanted to throw that out there because we talk about the greenhouse gases, and as somebody who lives in Antioch and has worked in San Francisco, I detest that interchange. Cindy, let's talk about something different. Let's talk about public safety.
Okay.
Broadway Plaza has been hit by a number of these smash and grab robberies. And I understand the police department has patrols there. Can anything else be done to stop this kind of crime?
All right, so I'm just going to start generally by saying a safe community is a fundamental for both quality of life, a strong local economy, being able to walk to the grocery store. You need to feel safe in your community. And we are committed as a community to ensuring that it is safe for all, for residents, for school children, for seniors, for businesses, and for visitors. The recent incidents of organized retail theft have occurred all over the United States. It is not just occurring in Walnut Creek. And what you have to become more aware of as both the businesses, and I know Matt has met with the businesses in this year as part of his work as mayor, is really understanding what their security plans are and what we can do in concert. We have responded decisively to what happened in November at Broadway Plaza and have invested, set aside about $2 million of federal funding, COVID funding, pandemic funding, in order to shore up the staffing as well as the technology and tools to be able to respond decisively. This has continued to, we're also focusing on internet crimes and human trafficking, things that we don't talk enough about. And community policing approach to homelessness and school resource officers and crossing guards and all public safety issues and disaster preparedness. So it's a much when we talk about public safety, it's a broader conversation. I think we are working hard with the business community to ensure that we understand what their constraints are and what their needs are, and at the same time being able to understand what the community's points of view are and how we adapt to the changing times.
Matt, so regarding what happened at Broadway Plaza and the work that you're doing with the business community, you talk about technology without, giving away all that's being done. Has more been done since November?
Absolutely, and I just want to say I and my council colleagues have a zero tolerance policy for any type of criminal behavior. We take that oath very seriously to keep our residents, our visitors, our business owners, and property owners safe in Walnut Creek. And as Cindy mentioned, we did act quickly and decisively in response to the incidents of organized retail theft, authorizing the hiring of 5 additional officers to patrol downtown, but also on the technology front. And our police chief, Jamie Knox, is a data-driven guy who is all about technology. We've authorized new non-lethal technology, but also security cameras, tether drones, which stay anchored in one place, monitored by a police vehicle that get a surveillance of the entire area, automated license plate readers. We've authorized the hiring of new e-bikes so that our officers can be out and about downtown and be a visible presence to deter future crime. And I participated in a public forum put on by the Chamber of Commerce yesterday where we had the police department and the district attorney's office talking about a lot of the work that goes on behind the scenes, that there's certainly a big part of this is deterring future crimes, but also when crime does happen, we want to make sure that our police department has the staffing, has the resources they need to quickly investigate and capture suspects as quickly as possible.
Laura, would you do anything differently if you were on the council? Would you push for any different programs?
One thing that I would push for is after Miles Hall's death, we had a lot of community listening sessions and engagement, and I don't feel like those continued. Granted, we've been in a pandemic. It's very difficult to host listening sessions when you can't meet in person. But since we are now in a space where people are getting more comfortable showing up in person, as this forum indicates, I think we need to reinstate those because it's important that community are able to interact with the people responsible for safety measures.
Yeah, regarding the people that are committing these crimes, I don't think they're coming from Walnut Creek. So how do you stop that?
That is a great question. I think that our police department, I want to commend them for finding people responsible for these highly publicized events of the Broadway break-ins and the Rolex thieves. It's great that they found those people. I think that we need to continue working with the communities around us, Contra Costa County providers, to continue making sure that we have connections and can, when these incidents occur, find those responsible.
Cindy, how much does the council work with the state on issues such as fiscal responsibility and things like that?
We work extensively with the state on issues. We are members as cities of the League of California Cities, which is an advocacy and education organization. It's an association of the 482 cities in the state of California. As it happens, this past year I've been president of that organization, and together we come together to determine what our policy and issues will be across the state, and then we advocate for those both in Sacramento and at the federal level. In terms of fiscal responsibility, I think if you're talking about the state budget, we advocate
The city budget.
the city budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
city budget. Yeah.
I thought you said state.
Well, I was talking about, do you work with the state, but my mind is saying, okay, one of the biggest complaints when you talk to people about city councils is that, transparency in budgeting and things like that. I'm just curious what you think your residents think about your transparency and fiscal responsibility.
I think they believe we are fiscally prudent. We are well known for that across the region, for being one of the most fiscally prudent cities in the state of California. We have a 2-year budget. We were one of the first to adopt a 2-year budgeting process. We go through a very extensive bottoms-up budgeting process that comes to us, and we have many months of discussion. We have balanced budgets. We have no operating debt. We have healthy reserves of more than $40 million, including $25 million set aside for pension liabilities. Our staffing levels have been flat since the Great Recession of 2008, such that we are achieving our workload not by adding more and more programs and staff, but by really contracting for services and being able to be more efficient that way. And the state controller has given us a A+ rating in terms of our fiscal responsibility, which is good because there are other cities in this state that do not have that.
Definitely. Brian, do you think, as a member of the council, what would you do? Could you improve on that?
You can't improve on a good situation. You can always do more, but I do want to commend, I think the city council has done a good job with budgeting. Bottom line, I received a mailer. It says, the city budgets are healthy but not wealthy. And I think it rhymes, so it's catchy. But also too, when I see that we're healthy but not wealthy with 40 million in reserves, why are we asking for a tax increase at this time? There's going to be a sales tax ask coming up of the citizens of Walnut Creek. And, the laundry list for reasons why we need the tax increase, they're just general fund expenditures. The bottom line is you want to be prudent. And I think that's a great term to describe how you ought to be with city finances. I think it is important to make sure we have the revenues to provide the services we want. But I think it's a curious time for the city council to ask for a sales tax increase when we're healthy but not wealthy. How wealthy do we need to be at the government level before we say we've taxed the customers of Walnut Creek businesses enough?
Matt, what would that money be used for if it's approved?
Well, for a variety
How much is it going to be if it's?
It's estimated it would be a half-cent sales tax, and it's estimated to generate between 11 and $13 million per year.
That's sales tax?
Correct.
Okay, so for people buying stuff at Broadway Plaza, they would pay a half-cent more in sales tax?
That's right, Bob. And importantly, things like everyday items like groceries, prescription medicines, rent, and mortgage, none of that is paid for by sales tax. And I want to assure the residents that this was a long-standing community conversation that goes back really a decade in terms of some of the things that the sales tax measure would fund. They include things like infrastructure that's reached the end of its useful life, turf soccer fields, extra library hours, crossing guards, and then the 5 police officers that we authorized with the use of one-time federal funding. So it really is a panoply of items. What they have in common is quality of life. And the benefit and why I supported this, along with my 4 other colleagues, was because, kicking the can down the road will not make these problems go away. It'll just make them more expensive. And I didn't run for city council to do that. I ran for city council to step up, to not shirk my responsibilities to address our aging infrastructure, and I fully plan to do that. What the benefit of this as well, as opposed to other revenue measures, which we also investigated, were that more than half of the approximately half the revenues generated from the sales tax measure would come from visitors, from non-residents. So they'd be paying their fair share for using our facilities and infrastructure. And also an important part of this was that Walnut Creek would still remain one of the lowest sales tax generating entities in the county.
What is it now?
We are at 8.75 now.
It'll go to 9.25.
That's correct.
Yeah. What do you think?
Normally I don't support additional sales tax because it's a regressive tax that impacts low-income families and individuals more. In this case, I do believe that our current city council has done a good job of balancing our budget, and some of the initiatives that we've talked about today, all of us, require additional money to implement them, whether it's the electrification of vehicles or buildings or some of the safety measures that we've talked about for bike lanes and walkable. Those all cost money. And so we do need a way to increase our budget so that we can pay for some of these community services that we all want. The thing that sold me on it was this statistic that 50% of people paying it are not residents of Walnut Creek, but are benefiting from our services and infrastructure.
What is something that we haven't talked about that you think is very important as a city council member?
I would love to talk about accessibility a little bit more.
You've got the floor.
I know, right? So I am a certified expert in digital accessibility, and I describe myself as an accessibility ally or a disability ally. There are places within Walnut Creek that are accessible, and there are a lot of places that are not, including my own street. The sidewalks are in disrepair. One of the things that I've noticed is we implemented buttons on streets so that you have to push the button and the walk signal doesn't automatically turn. And that's actually hurts people who can't hear because they rely on traffic. And I understand that there's vocal aspects of it, but it's actually safer for people who can't hear to automatically have those walk signals turn on. Our city website, where people go for a lot of information about the city council and forms and things that they need to be a citizen of the city, is not accessible. And that, again, requires money to address those issues. But it's something that I would like our city to be a leader on.
Is that something that do you have a program in place to look at places that aren't accessible, like the sidewalks that she mentioned? Do you have a way, a plan to make the website accessible?
Well, we're currently rebuilding the website, so
Glad to hear that.
so we will be confident that the future will be easier to use. We have a plan related to our sidewalks. So as we are rebuilding our streets, then we also rebuild the corners so that they are accessible. Certain sidewalks, what people may not realize is that sidewalks in residential neighborhoods do not belong to the city. They belong to the residential neighbors. And so oftentimes the widths of sidewalks, et cetera, may not be what they need to be today. But I'm very proud of some of the things that we have done, particularly in our community facilities and our senior center and civic park, where we've invested money from our community development block grant funding from the state on accessibility improvements so that doors do open better and these certain buildings are more accessible. And as we upgrade facilities over time, we will again improve the accessibility because you do it at the same time.
Yeah. Brian, is there something that we're not talking about that we should be talking about?
I think we should talk about why it's a great place to retire in Walnut Creek. I'm a member of the Advisory Council on Aging, which is the county council that we advise the county supervisors about how the various programs designed to help the elderly are working. Meals on Wheels, our ambulance contract, those sorts of things. The Medi-Cal that a lot of people use when they're in and out of nursing homes. All those are county-administered programs. I think we need to focus on, we have a huge Rossmore community. We've talked a lot about walkability. A lot of people, if you live in Rossmore, you're not walking to the Safeway down the road. So we need to make sure that we don't just say, hey, let's just get rid of cars. I have a minivan and a cargo carrier on top of it. I've got 3 little kids. At some point, there's limits to how little I can drive. I try my best, but I think we do need to focus on, if we can get it right for the kids and get it right for the grandparents, it's gonna make life a lot easier for the 30-somethings and 40-somethings that moved into this community to raise their family and hopefully grow old in that same house. Aging in place is the phrase that's used a lot in the elderly services community. We wanna make sure that people, as you grow older, you can remain in your home where you want to be. I think a lot of what we've talked about today really serves that goal. But I think if we just say, let's do it for the environment, or let's do it as a budgetary issue, let's identify people first. Let's make sure the kids and the grandparents are doing well. And you know what? If those 2 demographics are doing okay, my life's gonna be a lot easier. I got kids here, my dad lives here, we got 3 generations of O'Toole's. You can't miss us if you go walking around. But bottom line, let's focus on the people. What brings people to Walnut Creek? Great schools, great retirement communities, and let's make sure that we preserve that. Bottom line, the more we build in a haphazard way, the more difficult it's gonna be to do that. We can grow, but let's grow smart.
Matt, is there anything I haven't asked you that we should be talking about?
Yeah, one thing we haven't touched on, Bob, is the pandemic and economic recovery. And obviously, we had a once-in-a-100-year pandemic, and that could be our future going forward. I hope that's not the case. But what I'm proud of, particularly proud of our city, is that we worked closely with our county partners and followed their health guidance and recommendations. We also quickly implemented a very successful outdoor dining program, and the City Council unanimously approved expanding that and making it permanent on a going forward basis because it was so popular. We also pivoted and provided a lot of our planning and building services online. People didn't have to come to City Hall. City Hall was closed at that time. We're reopened now, but we've done things a lot better than we did before the pandemic, and I want to see that continue in the future, that innovation, the creativity, the flexibility. And it's very important to me that we make Walnut Creek a safe and attractive place for business. I agree with Brian that we need to build a community where people can not only live in Walnut Creek, but also work in Walnut Creek. And we have the opportunity with the pandemic to do that. With work from home, a lot of companies are looking for communities in inner ring suburbs, places like Walnut Creek and San Ramon. And I want to make sure that when they do their close-up and their due diligence on Walnut Creek, they see a community that's ready to welcome them with open arms, that has done the hard work by going through their zoning and planning and ensuring that it's flexible, encouraging and welcoming those types of uses like life science, biotech, and also that we streamline the review process so that there's certainty and finality, which is important for any new business or property owner.
So, the pandemic has opened up our eyes to remote work. I'm wondering how much of an effect that's having on the real estate market in Walnut Creek. Do you know?
Well, it's having a significant impact on the commercial market.
Commercial, that's what I meant, yeah,
Right.
commercial.
And we are working with the business community and the commercial market across the Bay Area to try to determine where the future goes. Because prior to the pandemic, we had a very strong local economy. In fact, Walnut Creek had the best job growth rate in the state of California because of our location, our transportation infrastructure, the quality of life that we offer our community. The type of housing we have in the downtown area is attractive to a younger workforce. And all of that came together perfectly, and we were moving forward, and then the pandemic hit. And so now it's not just how do you rebuild and move forward for dining and retail, but you're also having to look at the office sector, because prior to the pandemic, people came to work in Walnut Creek from all over the region. And during the day, they would also go to lunch and they would shop. So it's changed. If you only have 60% going to work during the week now, and 40% are working from home, that's taken 40% away, not only from your need for office space, but also the impacts, the indirect economic impacts of your retail and your restaurants. And so it's a big question. The further question becomes, the state in its wisdom is moving forward 2 bills that are sitting on the governor's desk to be signed. One is by Assemblymember Buffy Wicks, AB 2011, and the other is by Senator Caballero, SB 6. And both of those bills would allow by right commercial property owners to convert to housing without basically getting a zoning change or a general plan amendment. This is what creates haphazard planning, not what's happening at the local level, but the state basically authorizing something in order to improve the housing environment. But what it's doing is it's changing the commercial environment and the whole jobs housing balance that we need to really be mindful of in the Bay Area, the greenhouse gas emissions that might occur because everybody's driving much further. So those are things that we watch carefully and that I'm very concerned about. But I'm going to cycle back and say, I think what we have to find is how do we best look at office in the future. We have some obsolete office space, both in the Shadelands and out in the Ignacio Valley, that was built in the 1970s, and it's probably not seismically, structurally safe enough, let alone designed for high-tech or biotech, and it's not designed for that kind of remote work and satellite work that needs broadband and dark fiber. So how do we accommodate the change in the future? How do we focus it, and how do we move forward? And it's probably going to take us 5 to 10 years to figure out how to transition into a new view of the office environment.
Well, so we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask, and this is a fun thing that I don't know about you. What do voters not know about you, Matt?
Well, most of my neighbors know that I like to run and ski up in Tahoe, but what they might not know is on the council, I take my responsibility very seriously as a council member. It's an honor to represent you. And I kind of read our packet from cover to cover, everything from the warrants, which are the checks that we pay for each of the city's expenditures, to the detailed plans and attachments and staff reports that we get, because it's important to me that if I signed up for this job, that I'm doing it to the best of my ability, that I'm representing you to the best of my ability. And so it's been an honor and a pleasure to do it, and I look forward to having the opportunity to continue to serve.
Fun, light reading at night, huh?
Yes, it is.
How about you, Laura?
Well, one fun thing is that I do CrossFit, and I'm really excited to be part of a CrossFit gym that's owned by a single mom. She makes a great community feel. And the other thing is I am a reader, so like Matt, I would read every word of any material given to the city council. I've read urban planning books just for the fun of it. Things of that nature really appeal to my nerd heart.
Yes, maybe you can start running it back and forth to the gym. 2-mile run each way. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I think a lot of people know that I read the packet and that I ask a lot of questions, so I won't go there. Probably something fun that people don't know is I had my first job when I was 12. I came home from summer vacation and I went to my father, who owned a business, and I said I want to work. And I worked 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. And he owned a nursery in Santa Cruz, and he taught me how to trim all sorts of plants. And I, to this day, cannot stand star jasmine because I had to trim 1,000 cans of star jasmine, and the odor that you get on a hot summer day in a hothouse from star jasmine is enough to kill you. So there's none of that in my yard.
Okay. Thank you much for sharing. Ryan.
Probably the most interesting thing about me is I think I'm the only Mandinka-speaking candidate ever to run for Walnut Creek City Council, possibly the only one in the Bay Area. I was in the Gambia in West Africa. I happened to do pretty well in the language training, so my boss put me as far from the capital cities as we could possibly get. So my 3 weeks of Mandinka was a lot better than the English out where I was posted. So when I was reading Alex Haley's Roots, which starts out in the Gambia, West Africa, a couple pages in, there's a little passage, Ningdorong warata iteti, He holds his daughter up and he says, "This is the only thing greater than you." When I read that, I thought, I don't even need to translate it. I know what that means right there.
All right.
There you
I want
go.
to thank you, our candidates, for answering some of these very important questions. Each candidate now has 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Now, Brian, you're first, and you'll do yours in Mandinka?
It's been a little while. The bottom line, I think we live in a great city. I think it's a very attractive city to live in and a very desirable city for people to come live here. I don't think e-bikes are the solution to the crime problem, as Matt alluded to. You need to send a message. That means you have to work with the detectives, the police office, and importantly, the district attorney's office. A lot after all these things happened, I said, I saw city councilors on the TV that said, "Please come down to our restaurants. Everything's safe. Please keep shopping down in downtown Walnut Creek." The bottom line is you need to send the right message. And if you're going to come and do ill will, or if you have ill will for our businesses and our citizens down here, the right message needs to be sent. And it can be done in a judicious and equitable way. At the end of the day, Walnut Creek's a great town to live in because we have great schools, great families, great people. You can retire here, you can raise your family here. But for me, what I get concerned about when I say, hey, we have a 5-year plan, and it involves all these apartment buildings, and then the next sentence it says, well, the city can't do much when the state allows builders to convert their commercial properties. Well, if we know that entire commercial buildings are going to be converted, maybe that's an indication we should pull the reins on some of our apartment building developments in Walnut Creek. Again, writing a strongly worded letter to the county, I don't think that's going to be the right response. You're going to need to make a stink, and I'm willing to eat the beans for Walnut Creek to make that stink. Thank you very much. Vote O'Toole.
Thank you, Brian. Cindy?
Thank you, Bob, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and CCTV and the Elections Department for sponsoring this event, and for the League of Women Voters for all you do to inform our communities about regional, local, and national issues. As a 16-year council member, I have delivered on my promise, which was to work tirelessly to ensure Walnut Creek remains an exceptional place to live, to work, and to visit. I believe a safe community is fundamental to our quality of life and to our local economy. And throughout my tenure, I've worked to ensure we have the police staffing and resources, the tools, the training, and the technology that are needed to protect our neighborhoods, our seniors and youth, our businesses, and our visitors. What you may not know is that I am the daughter and granddaughter of small business entrepreneurs, so I know the importance of local business and local economic development. And during the first 2 years of COVID, I was part of the city's Rebound Committee that worked with the business community to facilitate outdoor dining and other outdoor business opportunities. And after getting those programs launched, I championed with my council colleagues the Small Business Grant Program that was truly a lifeline to many of our businesses. This year, I've had the honor to serve as state president of the League of California Cities, and in that role, I have been on the front lines advocating the state and federal government for support on issues that are important to most cities and to Walnut Creek. And if reelected, I will remain dedicated to these community priorities. My proudest accomplishment is one that involves many. Believing in the power of community service, I founded in 2011, and I still chair our Walnut Creek Community Service Day. And please be sure to come out this year for it. In these challenging times, we need proven, dedicated leadership. I'm an effective leader who delivers results, and I'd be honored to serve you and continue to.
Thank you, Cindy. Laura Patch?
Thank you for hosting this great forum. I've really enjoyed it. I don't come from the same background as other people on council and those running, and I believe that that allows me to offer a unique perspective. I have dedicated my whole life to community service and activism. I was one of those kids that organized my friends after Halloween to pick up the neighborhood. I volunteered with the AmeriCorps, similar to Brian's Peace Corps, where I served in Walnut Creek, Oakland, and Antioch. I have spent my career in nonprofits, I've worked with organizations that offer job training for low-income or incarcerated individuals, address gender equity, and climate change. I'm currently a staff member with the Sierra Club. From working in these spaces, I understand the benefits of having diverse representation and would center my leadership in the Jemez principles of organizing, inclusivity, working together, and self-transformation, to name a few. I acknowledge that I look very similar to those already on council, but I commit to being the person to uplift voices of the historically marginalized communities. I believe government should run on empathy and community, and I think that I can bring that to Walnut Creek. Please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And Matt.
Well, thank you, Bob, for moderating. Thank you to the League of Women's Voters, the Contra Costa Elections Department, and CCTV for hosting this forum. During my first term on the City Council, we adopted balanced budgets despite substantial revenue shortfalls, took action to improve public safety and disaster preparedness, and supported non-police responses to mental health crises. I've used my legal skills and training to solve problems and advocate for residents. I've been a careful steward of our fiscal resources. And as mayor this year, I've been an active listener who works hard to address concerns and reach consensus. There's more work to do. That is why I'm running for re-election. We need to reinvest in our aging parks and recreation infrastructure so that future generations can likewise benefit from the facilities and programs we have all enjoyed. We must attract new businesses and industries to Walnut Creek so that fewer residents need to commute out of town for work. It's better for the environment and it's better for families. We also need to ensure that Walnut Creek remains a safe place to live, work, and to visit. I supported hiring additional police officers to prevent and respond to criminal activity. I also support the county's A3 program so that anyone, anywhere, anytime can have access to behavioral health services. I'm proud to be endorsed by Congressman Mark DeSaulnier, State Senator Steve Glazer, and hundreds of community leaders, including 14 prior Walnut Creek mayors. If re-elected, I will continue to work hard for you to improve our quality of life. I would be honored to have your vote. For more information, please visit my website, matt4walnutcreek.org. That's Matt, the number 4, walnutcreek.org. Thank you once again.
Thank you. This concludes our forum of the 4 candidates running for 2 seats on the Walnut Creek City Council. Once again, our candidates are Matt Francois, Laura Patch, Cindy Silva, and Brian O'Toole. For more information on the candidates, ballot measures, and who supports them, go to votersedge.org. The last day to register is October 24th. Now, all eligible registered Contra Costa voters will receive a vote-by-mail ballot for the November 8th election. You can find detailed information on the upcoming election on the Contra Costa County Elections website, cocovote.us. I'm Bob Butler from KCBS Radio. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote November 8th.